Hi everyone, Shirin here, and welcome to day 3 of the Daily Creative Challenge for Adobe Premiere Pro. For those of you who are just joining us today, the Daily Creative Challenge is a week-long challenge for Premiere Pro to help you level up your video editing skills. Now, before we begin, make sure to pop into the chat and let me know where you are tuning in from. So let's take a look at the chat. Let's see. We've got Valdair, Sam, Project 90660. We've also got Theo, Fergie, Steve. Hello everyone, thank you all so much for tuning in. So let me walk you through the challenge page for those of you who are just joining us today. This is behance.net/challenge/premiere. So if you press this blue button up here, you can sign up to take the challenge, and this will give you daily notifications via Creative Cloud to take the challenge. And then you can also join our community chat over in Discord, and this is where you can interact with the community and share your challenge project files from each day's challenge. So once you press community chat, it'll take you over to this link right here where you can join the Discord, and then the Discord looks like this. So right here, you see on the left, we have all these different servers within Discord. We're mainly going to be hanging out over here in Challenge, and that is where you can share all of your project files. So as you can see right here, Dorina has shared the rough cut for day 2. So let's check out this rough cut. Today I'm going to show you 3 ways to wear a scarf. The first way is super simple. You're simply going to open up your scarf and make sure that it is folded in half. So as you can see, right now, this is the full length of the scarf, and I'm just going to make sure it is nicely folded in half, and I'm going to place it around my neck. Now, this is looking amazing. I love the use of B-roll in the beginning. That's a really great way to, highlight the scarf. Looks amazing. And then if we scroll up a little bit, we also have some day 1 challenges. So over here we have Ashwin's custom workspace. So this looks great, amazing job. And Valder had a really great suggestion. Valder said, if you use a lot of audio editing in your workflow, you can add the essential sound panel as well, and you can insert it in the markers and effects nested group. So right here on the right, you see how we have effects and markers. You can go ahead and add in more project panels, so like essential sound, if you know that you're going to be working with audio a lot. So some other servers to look out for in here are the introductions. You can go ahead and introduce yourself. There's also ask a question, tips and tricks, and then up here within Creative Challenge, this is where you can see all the creative challenges for the day. So if we go back to this main page right here, you can also scroll down and see what all the daily challenges are. So if you missed out on day 1, day 2, you can just watch those videos right here and catch up. And then to access the starter files, you can press Get Started. So this will take you to this page right here where you can download the assets. So you can either copy them to your work onto Creative Cloud or just individually download each clip by pressing on these 3 dots and then pressing Download. So if you're just joining us today, take your time, catch up. We are waiting for you over in the Discord. So let's go on to today's challenge. Now, before we dive into all the color workflow essentials, let me know in the chat if you know what the difference is between color grading and color correction. And if you don't, take a wild guess. And I'll give y'all a sec, and I'll give you a hint. It's in the name. Correction versus grading. So let me know what y'all think. So let's hop on over to the chat. I see we've also got Umacorn. Hello, hello. And then we also have Dorina. Hello. So let me know what you think the difference is between color correction and color grading. Now, while y'all get your answers over in the chat, I just want to point out that today we are going to be working in the color workspace. Now, if you wanted to, you could add the Lumetri color panel to your own custom workspace that we created on day 1. And how you would do that is by, let's just go over to this custom workspace. So you would go over here and let's just pretend you don't have it. So I'm going to take out the Lumetri color panel. All I would have to do is go over to Window and then look for Lumetri color right here, press it, and now that has been added to my workspace. And of course you can drag and drop this anywhere you want. So let's say for whatever reason, if I want to have it nested over here with source, I can just drag and drop it right there. But I don't want to do that, so I'll just bring it back right there. And there we go. So you can also add in your Lumetri scopes. So over here on the left, you see how you have all these colorful waveforms. This is something that's going to be very essential to your color correction and color grading workflow. So to bring that up, again, same thing, you would just go over to Window and then pull up Lumetri scopes by pressing on it. So in the chat, I see Darina says, my guess is color grading is like enhancing the colors. Yes, kind of. And then Steve says, correction fixes really odd or strange things like purple people. Grading make things look better overall, more realistic. Michael says, color correction is fixing a set of colors. For example, to correct skin tones. Yes, that is absolutely correct. So color correction is to correct the colors in your footage. So if something was shot way too bright or way too dark, color correction is the way to basically fine-tune those colors and make everything look realistic the way it would in real life. Now, color grading is adding a stylized look to your footage. So this is where you can get really particular with the types of colors. So like if you want to make your blues a bit more teal, if you want to make your yellows a bit more orange, it just helps to basically add a stylized look. Think of this as a preset. So think of color correction as correcting everything, making it look like real life, and color grading like a preset for your video. So if you've ever used presets like in Lightroom for your photos, this is basically the same thing but for video. So great guesses. Let's go back to the color workspace and we can begin to color correct our clips. So right now, this clip right here has had color correction and color grading. Now, if I just toggle this off, and I can do that by going over to my Lumetri color panel and pressing FX right here to toggle it off. So you'll see the difference immediately. Look at that. This is the raw footage, and then this is the color corrected and color graded. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's go over to this clip right here, which has nothing on it. And let's begin to color correct. So the first step you want to do is always color correcting. So right here on the left in our Lumetri scopes panel, I want you to take note of only two things. You might be looking at this and feeling very overwhelmed and not knowing what you're looking at. All I really need you to know is that 0 is true black and 255 is true white. Now, why is that important and what does that mean? So essentially, all that means is that for color correction, you want to have your blacks hitting pretty close to 0. So right now you can see they're around 26, which means they're not really close to true black. I like to keep mine around like a 5. I don't ever have them fully hitting 0, and you don't want them going below 0 either. So I'll show you what that'll do. The way that you can adjust your blacks is by going over to basic correction within the Lumetri color panel, and then just pulling down your blacks. So we're gonna pull down this slider, and I'm gonna go until it starts to hit around 0. Now you'll see as I keep going, these other waveforms are being pulled down and they're kind of collecting at the bottom, right? This whole line that's going on at the bottom. You don't want that to happen because that means now you're losing detail within your blacks. You want to make sure that you're still retaining that detail. So let's slide back up this black slider, and we're just going to go until it hits slightly above 0. So somewhere around more or less here. So this is minus 10.6 for me. Now let's go over to our whites. So up here with 255, you can see that some of our whites are going past that, which again means we are losing some of that detail over in our whites, and we don't want that. So let's go to our white slider, and we will bring this down as well. So now you'll see it's just slightly below 255, and that subtle change right there is all it takes to really color correct your footage. Now, the next thing that you can do is adjust the temperature. So right now, when we're looking at this, it looks a bit cool toned, right? So let's say we want to add in some warmth. We're going to go over to temperature and pull our slider over to the right so that we can introduce some more warmth into this shot. So something around here looks good to me. Now, if we wanted to, we could keep going and just see what that looks like. So if I keep going, it's going to get way more orange, and if I go all the way, it's just really intense. I want to keep this more real, so we're going to bring the slider back to around 15, 20. We'll do 20. So that is essentially color correction. Now we can move on to color grading. So for color grading, we are going to be going down to creative. So within creative, up here, you have this option that says look. So this is lookup tables. And remember how before I was talking about presets? A lookup table is essentially a preset for video. So down here, you'll see you have so many options within Premiere, and they have already provided all of these LUTs for you to use. So you can go through and try them out one by one and see what they look like. So let's try some out. And let me know in the chat if you have tried LUTs before, and if you have, which one is your favorite? We can try them out together. So let's scroll down. Let's do SL Clean Fuji B. So right off the bat, you'll see a drastic difference, right? Now, the intensity right now for this LUT is set to 100. Typically, I will never keep these at 100. I like to bring down the intensity to somewhere around 10 to 20. I really want this to be super subtle because, as you saw, having it at 100 is just intense. We just want a subtle change. So I'm going to bring it down to 18.3. Now, if I go back to my FX button up here and just toggle everything on and off, we can see the before and after. So here's the before, it's much more cool, and here is the after, it's warmer and looks more true to real life. So let's try out a couple other LUTs as well. Theo is asking, what's that noise? That is my bird Romeo in the background. He says hello. So let's try some other LUTs. Let's see. Let's try this one. Monochrome Kodak F218 Kodak 2395 by Adobe. So if I bring this all the way up to around 100, you'll see this is giving us this really cool monochromatic look. Now, this is really cool too. I love this. Maybe this is the style that you're going for. So you could just keep it around 100, or you can bring it down a little bit, just so you have kind of like this desaturated almost effect. Let's try out another LUT. Let's do this one. Kodak 5205, Fuji 3510 by Adobe. So this one, I actually really like this one. This one, it's basically really enhancing the colors that we already had going on. So let's just bring this down a little bit to make it subtle, maybe around like 25-ish. And let's take a look at the before and after for that. So again, just toggling on and off FX by pressing on this button. So before and after. And that looks good to me. From here, the next thing that we can do is take a look at these adjustments and play with them a little bit. Typically what I like to do, and this is a very personal choice, you don't have to do this, I like to up the faded film to about 10. And you'll see what this does is basically lift our blacks. So as I keep going, take a look at the footage right here. You'll see you're now getting like this almost hazy film-like sort of effect, which I personally love. So I like to make it subtle and keep it around 10. So we're gonna do that. Let me just type in 10. There we go. And then the next thing that I like to adjust is the vibrance and saturation. Now, there is a difference between vibrance and saturation. Let me know in the chat if you know what that difference is. And if you don't, again, take a guess. Steve says, I have a bunch of birds outside here. It's late spring and they are yelling and going bananas. Oh my gosh. Where do you live, Steve? It's like basically winter here. I'm freezing. I've got a hoodie on. I wish it was spring. Like, I love the transition from spring to summer, hearing all the birds. It's so beautiful. The uses, I thought I heard a canary. Yep, not a canary, but a parrot. So, going back to vibrance and saturation, the difference is that vibrance is going to affect your skin tones, whereas saturation affects the entire image. Let me show you what I mean. So, if we slide up saturation, take a look at all the colors. They're all being affected, right? Like everything is just being intensified. Now, if we do vibrance, you're gonna see it's not affecting the colors in the back as I keep sliding it up. It's basically just affecting our skin tones. Now, if I keep going all the way, it will start to affect the colors in the back a little bit, but it's nowhere near as intense as bumping up saturation. So vibrance really helps to protect your skin tones. And typically what I will do is bump up the vibrance more than the saturation, because again, I don't want to make the skin tones look all wild. So let's bump this up a little bit. We'll do vibrance around 20. And then we'll just bump up saturation to like something like 110. And let's keep messing around with this because I want to show you the difference that this makes. So let's keep sliding up saturation. And you'll see as I go up more, it's really affecting all the colors and it looks too punchy for my taste. So I'm going to bring this back down. Now, something else that you could do is desaturate your footage. So if I go down, this is kind of giving us the similar effect to that LUT that we had before. That was the monochromatic look. So another way that you could create that sort of monochromatic effect is by just lowering your saturation. In the chat, I see Steve says, I'm in New Zealand. Oh my gosh, I would love to visit New Zealand. It looks so beautiful there. Christelle says, that sounds so exotic to Steve. It really does. New Zealand sounds absolutely beautiful. Steve says, it's really nice, except when the orcs start running around causing trouble. Lord of the Rings reference. You know, I've never seen Lord of the Rings, and I have absolutely no idea what an orcs is. Can somebody please fill me in? That movie is way too long for me. I don't have the patience to sit there and watch Lord of the Rings. So let's go back to our saturation and just bump this up ever so slightly to around like a 110. All right, so now let's take a look at this before and after. Before and after, and that looks good to me. The next thing that you can do is go down to your curves. So this is similar to your curves when you're editing photos. Basically, you have your midpoint shadows and your highlights, and you can adjust all of those globally right here. But I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to do Command Z and get rid of all those changes. Now, going down to color wheels and match, this is where you can further color grade your clips. Now, a very popular look within cinema, Hollywood, for color grading is teal and orange. You may have heard of it, and if you haven't, all that really means is that your shadows are going to be teal. So we'll drag this down to teal. And then your midtones and highlights are orange. So if I drag this over to orange, and for whatever reason, it is not cooperating with me right now. But if you try that out on your own, you'll see the look that it creates on your footage. So I'm just going to press Command Z, get rid of those, and now let's go on and let's color correct the rest of our clips. Now, something else that you can do is instead of color correcting directly on your clip and color grading directly on your clip like we did right here, you can use an adjustment layer. So if I go over to my project panel, you'll see that I already have an adjustment layer created, but if you don't have one, let me show you how to do that. So I'm going to pull up this project panel up here so you can see this a little bit better. And then down here, you're going to press this icon, and if you hover over it, it'll say new item. So now you're going to have all these different options. You're going to select adjustment layer. So by default, it'll say 1920 by 1080, and then you're just going to leave everything else as is and press OK. And so now that adjustment layer has been added over to our project panel, and we can change the name of this. So if I just double click on where it says adjustment layer, I can rename this. So I'm going to rename this color correction and press enter. So now what I can do is drag and drop this over to this third video track and then extend it out all the way like that. So an adjustment layer is essentially a blank video track. There's nothing on it. It's similar to editing in Photoshop. If you just add a new blank layer, you know how you can go in and add things essentially or change things around. This is essentially the same sort of concept. So it's a blank layer and you can add things to it. So now, since this color correction adjustment layer is placed on top of all of our video clips, it will automatically adjust the color correction for all of our video clips. So if I go over to this clip that we haven't colored yet, and I go over and I just apply a real quick color correction, you'll see it's going to be affecting the clip. Let's just warm this up a little bit. And so if I go over here as well, you'll see this clip became more intensified in terms of color correction than it was before, right? So let's turn off the color effects for this layer that we initially colored. We'll just toggle this off and you can see the difference that that has made. And then let's toggle off the correction for this as well. And so now if we just quickly scrub through our clips, you'll see that all of them have the same color correction applied to them and everything looks uniform. So usually I like to do that. I like to color correct and color grade on an adjustment layer because it's just an easier way to go back and change things globally instead of having to go in and one by one change your clips. And it just makes my life easier when it comes to editing. So the next thing that I like to do is have another adjustment layer specifically for color grading. So again, we'll go over here to new item within our project panel, press adjustment layer, press OK, and then let's change this to color grade. So now I will drag and drop this to my timeline on top of that color correction track and just scrub all the way to the end of our clip. So now we can go in and go back to Lumetri color, go to creative, and then let's choose one of these LUTs. I forget which one we landed on. I think it was this one. Nope, it was not this one, but we're just gonna go with it. So let's lower the intensity to around 10-ish, and then we can bump up faded film. And then quickly we can bump up vibrance and saturation. And so now you can see if I turn these off, just toggle it off by going over to the V4 track. If I toggle off the color grade, you can see the before and after. It's kind of subtle, but you can definitely see that the colors are more enhanced, they're popping a bit more, and they look really nice. Now, if I turn off color grade and color correction, you can now see the full transformation. So this was the before, this is with color correction added, and then this is with the color grade. So another thing that you could do to help yourself stay organized is change the color of the color correction and the color grade layers. So what I like to do is for color correction, I'll just right click, go to label, and then change this to another one of these colors. And there's no right or wrong color. This is just up to you and what works best for your workflow. Typically for color correction, I'll do something like a blue. So let's see, I think it's like teal. Maybe you can do something like that. And then for color grade, right click, go to label, and then we'll do something like mango. So now when I'm looking at this at a glance, right off the bat, it's easy for me to know that, okay, I've applied my color correction and I've applied my color grade. Now this is a very personal thing. You don't have to do that. You can just leave it how it is, but that is how you would go ahead and do that. So in the chat, let's see, Steve is saying orcs are terrible things. Big, mean, nasty, and smelly and fictitious. Ugh, Dorina says and ugly. Okay, well, more reason not to watch Lord of the Rings. Steve says, I like to play with vibrance and saturation in Photoshop a lot. And Theo says, I assume you can add transitions for adjustment layers too. So fade from monochrome to color. Yeah, you can go ahead and add keyframes and all of that. That is more advanced, so we won't get into that today. But that is essentially color grading and color correction in a nutshell. So do your color correction, color grading, and drop those project files over in Discord, and I'll see y'all over there. Tune back in tomorrow for day 4. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!